The bass thundered through Manhattan's most exclusive underground club as Bruce Castellano adjusted his platinum watch, surveying his empire from the VIP balcony. At 42, he commanded respect through calculated moves and lethal precision. Tonight's gathering wasn't just celebration, it was business expansion into the lucrative cryptocurrency laundering market. "Mr. Castellano," his lieutenant Danny approached, "the Yakuza representatives want to discuss terms." Bruce nodded, his steel-gray eyes scanning the crowd below. Power radiated from his 6-foot frame, expensive Italian suit perfectly tailored. Everyone here knew his reputation. Brilliant, ruthless, untouchable. The waitress appeared beside his table, honey-blonde hair, emerald eyes that held secrets. She set down his usual Macallan 25, but something was wrong. Her hand trembled slightly. "Your drink, sir," Sofia Martinez whispered, leaning closer than protocol dictated. Her lips barely moved as she spoke. "Don't drink it. Smile and leave now." Bruce's instincts screamed danger. In his world, survival meant trusting gut feelings. He caught her wrist gently but firmly, feeling her pulse racing like a hummingbird's wings. "Who are you?" he murmured, maintaining his practiced smile for watching eyes. "Someone who doesn't want to see you die tonight," she breathed, her voice carrying genuine fear. "There are 3 men by the bar. The one in the navy suit paid the bartender. Your drink is poisoned." Bruce's gaze shifted subtly. Navy suit, Vincent Romano's crew. His biggest rival had finally made a move. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd been planning to eliminate Vincent next week. "Why warn me?" Bruce asked, still holding her wrist, feeling the delicate bones beneath soft skin. "Because killing is wrong," Sofia replied simply, her eyes meeting his with startling honesty. "No matter who you are." Bruce released her hand, standing with fluid grace. "Walk with me to the exit, naturally." As they moved through the crowd, Bruce's mind calculated rapidly. Vincent had grown bold, but also sloppy. Using poison in public showed desperation. This meant war was coming whether Bruce wanted it or not. "What's your name?" he asked as they reached the private elevator. "Sophia," she replied, fear creeping into her voice. "They saw me warn you, they know." The elevator doors closed, sealing them in golden silence. Bruce studied this woman who'd just saved his life. 28 years old, intelligent eyes, hands that worked for a living. She wore her uniform like armor, but he sensed vulnerability beneath her courage. "You just signed your death warrant helping me," Bruce said bluntly. "You understand that?" Sophia's jaw tightened. "I understand plenty about death, Mr. Castellano. I grew up in these neighborhoods. I know what you are, what you do, but I also know right from wrong." Bruce felt something shift inside his chest, an unfamiliar sensation. When had anyone last challenged him so directly? When had anyone shown such naive bravery? The elevator reached the parking garage. His armored Mercedes waited, engine running, Danny behind the wheel with 2 other men. "Get in," Bruce commanded. "I can't," Sophia protested. "I have to work, I have—" "You have a choice," Bruce interrupted, his voice carrying the authority of absolute power. "Come with me and live, or stay here and die. Vincent Romano doesn't leave witnesses." Sophia's face paled as reality hit. By saving Bruce's life, she'd become a target. Her simple act of conscience had thrust her into a world where mercy was weakness and trust was suicide. "My apartment, my life, gone," Bruce said coldly, then softened slightly. "But not your life, not if you're smart." She looked back at the club entrance, then at Bruce's outstretched hand. This moment would change everything for both of them. "One night," she said finally, "until I figure something out." "One night," Bruce agreed, knowing it was a lie. Nothing in his world was ever that simple. As the Mercedes pulled into Manhattan traffic, neither realized they'd just started a war that would cost them everything, except each other. 24 hours later, Bruce's penthouse felt like a fortress prison. Sophia stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching Manhattan pulse with life 40 stories below. She'd barely slept, jumping at every sound, every shadow. "You can't keep me here forever," she said, without turning around. Bruce emerged from his office, having spent the night coordinating responses to Vincent's aggression. 3 of his legitimate businesses had suffered mysterious accidents overnight: a restaurant fire, a construction site sabotage, a shipping delay that cost millions. "Vincent's declaring war," Bruce announced, pouring himself coffee from a silver service. "Your little rescue mission triggered something that was already coming." Sophia whirled around, fury blazing in her emerald eyes. "Don't you dare blame me for this." "I saved your life, and I'm grateful," Bruce replied, his voice measured. "But gratitude doesn't change reality. You're marked now." The truth hung between them like a loaded gun. Bruce had spent hours researching Sofia Martinez, night school for nursing, supporting her mother's medical bills, working 3 jobs to stay afloat. She was everything his world typically destroyed. Innocent, hopeful, decent. "I have to go to work," Sophia insisted. "People depend on me." "People will mourn you if you're stupid enough to leave this apartment." Bruce's phone buzzed. Danny's voice was tense. "Boss, we got a problem. They hit the safe house on 42nd Street. Marco's handling cleanup, but they knew exactly where to look." Bruce's jaw tightened. Marco Castellano, his cousin and most trusted lieutenant, had been handling intelligence for years. If Vincent knew about the 42nd Street location, someone was feeding him information. "Any survivors?" Bruce asked. "2 of ours, none of theirs, professional work." After hanging up, Bruce found Sophia watching him with those unsettling, honest eyes. "How many people died because of me?" she asked quietly. "None died because of you," Bruce corrected. "Bruce. People died because Vincent Romano is ambitious and stupid. You just happened to be in the way." But even as he said it, Bruce felt the weight of responsibility. Sophia didn't belong in this world of calculated violence and brutal pragmatism. Her presence complicated everything, made him question decisions that should be automatic. "I need to call my mother," Sophia said. "She'll worry." "Already handled. She thinks you're visiting your aunt in Philadelphia for a few days." Sophia's eyes widened. "You researched me." "I research everyone who enters my life uninvited." Bruce's tone was matter-of-fact, but something in his expression had changed. "Your mother has diabetes. Stage 3, expensive medication." "How did you—" Sophia stopped, realizing the obvious answer. "You investigated my entire life. Maria Martinez, 64, retired seamstress, lives alone in Queens. Medical debt approximately $60,000. You work 80-hour weeks to keep her alive." Sophia's hands trembled with rage. "Say you have no right? I have every right to know who I'm protecting and why." Bruce stepped closer, his presence overwhelming in the vast space. "Your mother's medication costs $800 monthly. You make 1,100 waiting tables. The math doesn't work." "I manage," Sophia said through gritted teeth. "You steal." Bruce's statement wasn't accusatory, merely observational. Nothing dramatic, extra change here, forgotten tips there, just enough to cover the difference. Sophia's face burned with shame and fury. "Judge me all you want. She's my mother." "I'm not judging," Bruce said quietly. "I'm understanding. You risked your life for a stranger, because you know what it means to protect someone you love." The unexpected gentleness in his voice stopped Sophia's prepared defense. She'd expected condemnation, not empathy from a man whose world operated on violence and profit. "Your mother's bills are paid," Bruce continued. "Full treatment, best doctors, no more worrying." "I don't want your money," Sophia protested, even as relief flooded through her. "It's not charity, it's payment for services rendered. You saved my life, and now I owe you. Now you're alive." Bruce moved to the window, studying the city he controlled. "Vincent won't stop. He's committed now, has to see this through. That means you're in danger until he's eliminated." "Eliminated." Sophia repeated the euphemism, tasting its bitter implications. "Killed," Bruce said bluntly, turning to face her. "This isn't a game, Sophia. People die in my world. The only question is which people." His phone rang again. Marco's voice urgent. "Bruce, we got movement. Vincent's planning something big. 3 black SUVs just left his compound." Bruce's expression hardened. "Where?" "Unknown, but they're armed for war." As Bruce barked orders into the phone, Sophia realized her simple act of conscience had unleashed forces she couldn't comprehend. But watching this dangerous man orchestrate protection for people he barely knew, she also realized something else. Bruce Castellano might be ruthless, but he wasn't heartless. The war had begun and she was no longer just a witness. Do us 3. The first attempt came at dawn. Sophia jerked awake to the sound of splintering wood and shouted commands. Through the bedroom door she heard gunfire, sharp cracks that echoed through the penthouse like deadly fireworks. "Stay down!" Bruce's voice carried absolute authority as he burst through the door. Glock in hand, still wearing yesterday's shirt but fully alert. "They're in the stairwell." "How many?" Sophia whispered, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Enough." Bruce moved to the reinforced window, peering through bulletproof glass at the street below. Vincent's boys, professional setup. More gunfire erupted from the living room. Danny's voice shouted updates. 2 down, but they keep coming. They've got the elevator shaft too. Bruce grabbed Sophia's hand, pulling her toward a hidden panel in the bedroom wall. Emergency exit. Leads to the service elevator. I can't, Sophia protested, paralyzed by terror. This isn't real. This doesn't happen to people like me. Bruce gripped her shoulders, his gray eyes boring into hers. Look at me. Right now, this is your life. You can fall apart later, but right now, you survive. Understand? Something in his voice cut through her panic. This wasn't the controlled businessman from the club. This was a predator in his element, calculating and deadly, but his hands on her shoulders were steady, anchoring her to reality. What about your men? She asked. They know the risks. Bruce's answer was brutal in its honesty. You didn't choose this life. They did. The panel opened to reveal a narrow corridor lined with steel. Bruce pulled her inside, sealing them into darkness lit only by emergency lighting. Behind them, the gunfire intensified. Where does this go? Sophia asked as they moved through the cramped space. Parking garage. We'll take the secondary exit. You planned for this? I planned for everything. Bruce's voice echoed off metal walls. Vincent's been circling for months. Tonight was inevitable. They reached another panel. Bruce listened carefully before opening it into the garage's shadows. His armored Mercedes waited exactly where he'd positioned it, engine running, Danny's backup plan. Keys are in the visor, Bruce said, checking his weapon. If something happens to me, nothing's happening to you, Sophia interrupted fiercely, surprising herself with the intensity of her conviction. Bruce looked at her with something approaching wonder. You've known me 2 days. Long enough to know you don't quit. Sophia's voice grew stronger. And neither do I. They moved toward the car using concrete pillars for cover. Bruce's phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Give us the girl and walk away. Vincent wants me specifically, Sophia realized, reading over his shoulder. He wants leverage. Bruce's jaw tightened. Me dead. You captured. Maximum psychological impact on my organization. Then let me go. End this. Bruce spun to face her, his expression fierce. You think I'd trade your life for peace with Vincent Romano? You don't understand what kind of man I am. I understand perfectly. Sophia met his stare without flinching. You're the kind of man who protects people, even when it costs you everything. For a moment something passed between them, and recognition that went deeper than gratitude or obligation. In the midst of violence and chaos, an unlikely bond was forming. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. 3 men in black emerged, automatic weapons sweeping the garage. Bruce shoved Sophia behind a concrete pillar, raising his Glock. Vincent's making this personal, he muttered, then called out, You boys are a long way from Brooklyn. Just give us the girl, Castellano. The leader's voice echoed off concrete. This doesn't have to be complicated. Everything in my life is complicated, Bruce replied, then whispered to Sophia, When I move, you run for the car. Don't look back. Bruce, don't argue. Just survive. Bruce stepped into the open, drawing fire while Sophia sprinted for the Mercedes. Bullets sparked off concrete and metal as Bruce methodically returned fire with the precision of a man who'd survived dozens of similar encounters. Sophia reached the car, fumbling with the door handle as panic made her clumsy. Behind her, Bruce's steady shooting provided deadly rhythm to their escape. The engine roared to life as Bruce dove into the passenger seat, blood seeping through his shirt sleeve. You're hit, Sophia gasped, throwing the car into gear. Flesh wound. Drive. As they burst from the garage into Manhattan's morning light, Sophia realized the terrified waitress from yesterday was gone. In her place sat someone harder, someone who'd looked death in the face and refused to blink. Where are we going? She asked, navigating traffic with newfound determination. Somewhere Vincent can't follow, Bruce replied, pressing a cloth to his wound. Somewhere we can plan. Plan what? Bruce's smile was cold as winter steel. How to end this war before it destroys everyone we care about. In the rearview mirror, smoke rose from the penthouse garage. Behind them lay Sophia's old life. Safe. Predictable. Ordinary. Ahead waited something she couldn't name but no longer feared. The war for Bruce Castellano's empire had begun, but Sophia Martinez was no longer just a victim caught in the crossfire. 4. The safe house sat on Long Island's North Shore, a sprawling estate disguised as a tech entrepreneur's weekend retreat. Sophia stared at the Atlantic Ocean through bulletproof windows while Bruce coordinated with his remaining allies via encrypted communications. Danny's team secured the Brooklyn docks, Marco reported over speakerphone, his voice crackling through signal scramblers. But we lost the Chinatown operation. Vincent's moving fast. Sophia had spent the past day learning the brutal mathematics of gang warfare. Every attack had a counterattack, every victory a price. Men she'd never meet were dying because she'd warned Bruce about poisoned whiskey. What about the Romano compound? Bruce asked, his wounded arm in a professional sling applied by the house's medical team. Locked down tight. 15 men minimum, military-grade weapons. They're expecting retaliation. Bruce's grey eyes found Sophia across the room. And our witness. Vincent's got a bounty on her. $2 million alive. Every crew from New Jersey to Boston knows her face. Sophia's blood chilled. $2 million. More money than she'd see in 5 lifetimes. Every criminal in the Northeast would be hunting her now. We need to move, Bruce decided. This location's compromised if Vincent's mobilizing every freelancer on the East Coast. After ending the call, Bruce approached Sophia's position by the window. She'd been quiet since the penthouse attack, processing the reality of her situation with admirable calm. $2 million, she said without turning around. I must be quite the prize. Vincent's not paying for you specifically, Bruce replied. He's paying for what you represent. Evidence that he can be beaten. That his organization isn't untouchable. I'm a symbol. You're a woman who made a choice. Everything else is politics. Sophia finally faced him, noting the exhaustion around his eyes, the careful way he held his injured arm. You're tired. I'm always tired, Bruce admitted. Running an empire doesn't allow for rest. Why do it then? You're smart enough for legitimate business. Bruce considered her question seriously. Few people dared ask him about his choices. Control, he said finally. In my world, I decide who lives, who dies, who prospers. In the legitimate world, men like Vincent Romano wear suits and destroy lives through corporate manipulation. At least my way is honest. Honest murder. Honest consequences. When I make a deal, it means something. When I give my word, it's absolute. Try finding that on Wall Street. Sophia studied his face, searching for rationalization or self-deception. Instead, she found a man who'd made peace with his choices, who carried the weight of his actions without flinching. Tell me about Vincent, she said. Bruce moved to the window beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, expensive, subtle, distinctly masculine. Vincent Romano inherited his father's operation at 25, Bruce began. Smart, ambitious, but impatient. He's been expanding aggressively, making enemies. My territory was his next target. And now? Now he's committed to a war he can't win. Vincent has numbers, but my people have loyalty. There's a difference. What kind of difference? Bruce's phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. A photograph of Sophia's mother leaving her Queen's apartment, unaware of the telephoto lens capturing her morning routine. The kind of difference that keeps innocent people alive, Bruce said grimly, showing Sophia the image. Sophia's face went white. He's threatening my mother. He's escalating. Bruce was already dialing. Marco, I need protection detail on Maria Martinez immediately. Full surveillance, armed escort. Already on it, Marco replied. 4 men positioned since yesterday. She's safe. Sophia sank into a nearby chair, overwhelmed by the scope of violence surrounding her simple decision to save a stranger's life. This is my fault, she whispered. This is Vincent's choice, Bruce corrected, kneeling beside her chair. You saved my life. Everything else follows from his response to that act. People are dying because I warned you about poison. People die every day in this business. The only difference is you gave me a chance to control how this ends. Bruce's hand covered hers. Warm. Calloused from years of violence, but surprisingly gentle. I make you a promise, Sophia Martinez. Your mother will live to see her grandchildren. You will survive this war, and Vincent Romano will pay for threatening what's mine. What's yours? Sophia met his intense gaze. What's under my protection, Bruce clarified, but something in his voice suggested deeper meaning. No one threatens what I've claimed responsibility for. Not successfully. As afternoon faded to evening, Sophia realized she was beginning to understand Bruce Castellano's world. Not just the violence and power, but the twisted honor code that governed it. Loyalty was currency. Respect was earned through strength, and protection was the highest gift one person could offer another. Vincent Romano had made a fatal error. He'd assumed Bruce would trade Sophia for peace, that pragmatism would overcome principle. But some men couldn't be bought, threatened or reasoned with when they decided to protect something. Bruce Castellano was one of those men, and Vincent was about to learn the cost of that miscalculation. 5. 3 days into their enforced exile, Sophia discovered Bruce Castellano was an excellent cook. She watched from the kitchen island as he prepared dinner with the same methodical precision he applied to everything else, every ingredient measured, every technique flawless. "Where did you learn to cook?" she asked, accepting a glass of red wine that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "My grandmother," Bruce replied, not looking up from the risotto he was stirring. "Nonna Castellano insisted every man should be able to feed himself properly. Said depending on others for basic needs was weakness." Smart woman, terrifying woman, 5 feet tall, ruled our entire neighborhood through sheer force of personality. Bruce's expression softened with memory. "She'd have liked you. How could you possibly know that? You stood up to me. Nonna always said a woman who wouldn't fight for what she believed in wasn't worth fighting for." Sophia felt heat rise in her cheeks that had nothing to do with the wine. Over the past few days, she'd glimpsed the man beneath the Mafia boss facade. Educated, thoughtful, surprisingly vulnerable when he thought no one was watching. "Tell me about before," she said. "Before all this." Bruce considered while plating their dinner with restaurant precision. Before was different. "I wanted to be an architect, believe it or not. Had acceptance to Columbia, full scholarship. What happened? My father was murdered when I was 19. Someone had to take over the family business. You could have walked away." "Could I?" Bruce set their plates on the dining table, lighting candles with practiced ease. 47 people depended on our organization for their livelihoods. Rivals would have moved in within a week, destroyed everything my grandfather built. Sophia joined him at the table, noting how naturally he'd created intimacy in the sterile safe house. "So you sacrificed your dreams for responsibility." "I adapted my dreams to reality." "There's a difference." They ate in comfortable silence, the Atlantic Ocean visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. Sophia found herself studying Bruce's hands, elegant fingers that could plan architectural marvels or orchestrate deadly violence with equal skill. "Why aren't you married?" she asked suddenly, then blushed at her own boldness. Bruce smiled, the first genuinely amused expression she'd seen from him. Direct question. Direct woman. "I was engaged once, 5 years ago." Bruce's smile faded. "Elena Rossi, daughter of an allied family. Perfect match on paper." What happened? She wanted the lifestyle without the reality. Loved being a Mafia princess until she realized what that actually meant. Bruce's voice carried old pain. "Some people think power is glamorous until they see its true cost. And now? Now I'm more careful about who I trust with the truth." The wine and candlelight were making Sophia reckless. What truth? Bruce leaned back in his chair, studying her with those penetrating gray eyes. "That power is loneliness. That control is an illusion. That every decision I make carries consequences for people I care about. Is that why you protected me? Consequences?" "I protected you because letting you die would have been wrong." Bruce's honesty was startling. "Everything else, the war, the complications, the threat to my organization, those are prices I chose to pay. For a stranger. For someone who risked her life to save mine without asking for anything in return." Bruce leaned forward, his intensity filling the space between them. "Do you understand how rare that is in my world?" Sophia felt something shift in her chest, a dangerous recognition of the man behind the reputation. "Bruce, I know this is insane," he continued, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "I know you didn't choose this life, that you have every reason to hate everything I represent. But these past few days have been the strangest of my life," Sophia finished, "and the most honest." "Honest? With you? I don't have to pretend everything's fine when it's not. I don't have to smile through exhaustion or hide how scared I am about my mother's medical bills." Sophia met his gaze directly. "You see exactly who I am, and you don't try to fix me, or save me, or change me. You don't need fixing. Everyone needs something." Bruce reached across the table, his fingers intertwining with hers. "What do you need, Sophia?" The question hung between them, loaded with implications neither had dared voice. Sophia felt herself balanced on a precipice. Behind her lay safety, predictability, her old life waiting if she survived this war. Ahead lay unknown territory with a man who wielded deadly power and impossible gentleness in equal measure. I need to know this is real, she said finally. Not just adrenaline or proximity or shared danger. It's real, Bruce replied without hesitation. Terrifyingly real. His phone buzzed, Marco's ringtone. Bruce ignored it, his attention focused entirely on Sophia. The phone stopped, then immediately started ringing again. Answer it, Sophia said reluctantly. Bruce connected the call. This better be important. It is. Marco's voice was tense. Vincent's planning something big. We intercepted communications. He's moving against all your lieutenants simultaneously tomorrow night. Coordinated strikes. Bruce's expression hardened. The intimate moment shattered by reality. How coordinated? 5 locations, same time. He's trying to decapitate your entire command structure. As Bruce switched into war mode, Sophia realized their quiet evening was ending. Tomorrow would bring violence that could destroy everything they'd begun to build together. But tonight, for just a few more hours, they could pretend the outside world didn't exist. 6. Vincent Romano's War Council met in the back room of a Bay Ridge restaurant. Maps and photographs spread across a table still sticky with marinara sauce. Vincent himself, 50 years old, silver-haired, wearing a $1,000 suit, studied surveillance photos of Bruce's key lieutenants with the intensity of a general planning invasion. Simultaneous strikes, he explained to his assembled captains. Danny Torino at the Brooklyn Dock Warehouse, Tommy Benedetti at the Chinatown Gambling Den, Frank Ricci at the Queens Construction Office, Michael Carbone at the Manhattan Restaurant, and Marco Castellano at the Long Island Safe House. What about Bruce himself? Asked Tony. The snake Benedetti, Vincent's most trusted enforcer. Bruce is mine, Vincent replied coldly. Once his command structure is eliminated, he'll be isolated, desperate. Men make mistakes when they're desperate. Tony studied the photograph of Sofia Martinez that dominated the center of the table. And the girl? Alive if possible, dead if necessary. She's leverage against Bruce, but she's also a witness who can connect us to the poisoning attempt. Vincent's smile was predatory. Either way, she stops being a problem tomorrow night. 20 miles away, Bruce ended the encrypted call with his Detroit contacts and turned to find Sophia watching him from the kitchen doorway. She changed into jeans and a sweater that emphasized her natural beauty. No makeup, hair loosely braided, looking younger than her 28 years. How bad? She asked. Vincent's making his move tomorrow night. Coordinated attacks on all my key people. Bruce moved to the window, studying the dark ocean. It's actually smart strategy. Eliminate my lieutenants, isolate me, force surrender or stupidity. What's the counter move? Bruce turned, surprised by her tactical thinking. You're learning to think like a strategist. I'm learning to think like someone who wants to survive. Sophia joined him at the window. Tell me the plan. There is no plan that doesn't risk everything I've built. Bruce's honesty was brutal. If I defend my lieutenants, I expose myself. If I protect myself, I lose my organization. There's a third option. Which is? Sophia faced him directly, her emerald eyes steady with newfound resolve. We end this, not by defending or hiding, but by attacking. Bruce studied her carefully. You're talking about assassination. I'm talking about finishing what Vincent started when he tried to poison you. Sophia's voice was calm, determined. He wants war? Give him war on your terms, not his. Sophia, don't. She pressed her fingers against his lips, silencing his objection. I've spent 3 days learning your world, understanding the rules. Vincent Romano broke those rules when he threatened my mother. Now he pays the price. Bruce caught her hand, holding it against his face. You don't understand what you're suggesting. I understand perfectly. Kill Vincent Romano before he kills us. Sophia's transformation was complete. The terrified waitress replaced by someone harder, more dangerous. You have contacts, resources, intelligence. Use them. If I kill Vincent, this becomes a blood feud that could last generations. If you don't kill Vincent, it ends tomorrow night with our deaths. Bruce recognized the truth in her words, the brutal mathematics of survival that governed his world. Vincent had forced this confrontation, made it personal, elevated it beyond business into something that could only end with total victory for one side. You're right, he admitted, but there's something else, something I haven't told you about tomorrow night. What? Bruce moved to his laptop, opening encrypted files that showed detailed floor plans and personnel records. Marco's at the Long Island Safe House, the same location we're supposed to be. Sophia studied the information, her quick mind processing implications. Vincent thinks we're there. Marco made sure Vincent thinks we're there. Bruce's voice carried deadly certainty. My cousin is feeding Vincent information. Has been for months. The betrayal hit Sofia like physical pain. Not for herself, but for Bruce. Marco Castellano wasn't just his lieutenant. He was family, trusted with the most intimate details of Bruce's life. How long have you known? She asked gently. Suspected for weeks. Confirmed today when I fed him false information about our location, and Vincent immediately adjusted his plans. Bruce's jaw tightened. Marco's been playing both sides, positioning himself to take over after Vincent eliminates me. What are you going to do? Bruce closed the laptop, his decision made. Tomorrow night, while Vincent's teams attack decoy locations, we're going to visit Vincent Romano personally. End this war before it destroys everyone I care about. You saved my life once. Now we save it together. As Bruce outlined his plan, audacious, dangerous, requiring perfect timing and absolute trust, Sofia realized she'd crossed a line she could never uncross. The woman who'd served coffee and worried about medical bills was gone, replaced by someone willing to walk into deadly violence beside the man she was falling in love with. Tomorrow night would determine everything. Who lived, who died, who ruled the streets of New York. But tonight they had each other, and for the first time since this war began, that felt like enough. 7. Vincent Romano's compound in Bay Ridge resembled a fortress more than a family home. Security cameras tracked every angle, armed guards patrolled in shifts, and motion sensors monitored the perimeter with military precision. At 11 p.m., Vincent sat in his study reviewing tomorrow's attack plans, confident that by midnight Bruce Castellano would be history. He never saw the shadow moving across his roof. Bruce had spent 20 years studying his enemy's weaknesses, and Vincent's greatest flaw was predictability. Every Tuesday night, Vincent dismissed half his security detail to attend his nephew's amateur boxing matches in Queens. Family loyalty, admirable in theory, fatal in practice. Motion sensor disabled, Sofia whispered through the comm unit, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She'd insisted on handling electronics, her nursing school training providing steady hands under pressure. Bruce dropped silently into Vincent's garden, noting the positions of remaining guards through thermal imaging. 2 guards. North entrance. 1 roving patrol heading east. Camera loop is active, Sofia confirmed from their surveillance van. You have a 12-minute window. Bruce moved like liquid shadow through Vincent's security perimeter, every step calculated from weeks of reconnaissance. The skylight above Vincent's study had been his target from the beginning. Vincent's ego demanded a room showcasing his power, but vanity created vulnerability. Bruce, Sofia's voice carried new tension. Marco just arrived. He's not supposed to be here. Through the thermal scope, Bruce watched his cousin enter the compound, moving with familiar confidence toward Vincent's private entrance. The betrayal still burned like acid in his chest. 20 years of trust dissolved by ambition and greed. Change of plans, Bruce murmured. 2 targets now. That's not what we agreed. Marco forced this choice when he chose Vincent over family. Inside the study, Vincent looked up as Marco entered without knocking. You're early. Couldn't sleep, Marco replied, accepting a glass of expensive scotch. Tomorrow changes everything. Tomorrow Bruce Castellano becomes history, and you become my most trusted lieutenant. Vincent raised his glass in mock toast. To new partnerships. To survival, Marco corrected, and something in his tone made Vincent pause. On the roof, Bruce hesitated. Through the skylight, he could see both men clearly. Vincent relaxed in his leather chair, Marco standing with practiced casualness near the window. The conversation was too quiet to hear, but body language spoke volumes. Bruce, you need to move, Sofia urged. Patrol guard is returning. Bruce positioned himself above the skylight, suppressed pistol ready. 1 shot each, quick and clean, then extraction before security responded. It should have been simple. Then Marco drew his weapon. Marco? Vincent's voice carried confusion, not fear. Not yet. Sorry, Vincent. Marco's gun was trained on his supposed ally. But Bruce Castellano is my cousin. My blood. You never really thought I'd choose you over family, did you? Vincent's hand moved toward his desk drawer, but Marco's warning shot splintered the wood inches from his fingers. The poisoning was my idea, Marco continued conversationally. I suggested it, arranged the opportunity, even picked the poison. Wanted to see if you were serious about this war. You son of a bitch. I'm a Castellano. We don't forgive and we don't forget. Bruce's world tilted sideways. Through the skylight, he watched 20 years of assumptions crumble in real time. Marco hadn't betrayed him. Marco had been playing the longest game imaginable. The information you fed Vincent, Bruce whispered into his comm. False intelligence, Sophia realized, monitoring radio frequencies. Marco's been feeding Vincent lies for months. Vincent was backing toward his panic room, desperation replacing arrogance. The attacks tomorrow, my teams are already in position. Your teams are walking into traps, Marco informed him calmly. Every location compromised, every route monitored. Did you really think Bruce Castellano survived 20 years by trusting anyone completely? Even me, Bruce murmured, understanding flooding through him. Marco had sacrificed his own reputation, his standing in the family, to create the perfect trap for Vincent Romeo. Bruce, security's moving, Sophia warned. You need to extract now. But Bruce was already moving toward the skylight access, not to attack, but to witness his cousin's masterpiece. Vincent reached for his phone, probably calling for backup. Marco shot it out of his hand with casual precision. No cavalry coming. Vincent, your compound is surrounded by Bruce's people, has been for hours. This is impossible. This is family. Marco's voice carried absolute finality, something you never understood. Through the comm, Bruce heard Sophia gasp. Bruce, look at the compound perimeter. Bruce shifted position, scanning with thermal imaging. Dozens of heat signatures surrounded the property. Not Vincent's guards, but Bruce's soldiers, led by Danny and the other lieutenants who were supposed to be under attack tomorrow night. Everyone's here, Bruce breathed. Everyone except you. Marco's voice came clearly through the room below. Because my cousin is too honorable to watch this. Vincent Romano, 50 years old, silver-haired, master manipulator, began to understand the scope of his defeat. The girl. We have men watching the girl. You have men watching an empty apartment, Marco corrected. Sofia Martinez is perfectly safe. From the van, Sophia watched security monitors showing Vincent's entire organization surrendering to Bruce's forces. No shots fired, no violence. Just overwhelming tactical superiority, achieving bloodless victory. Bruce, she called softly, come home. Bruce took one last look at his cousin delivering justice to their family's enemy, then melted back into the shadows. Marco had given him something precious, plausible deniability, clean hands. The ability to claim Vincent's death was an internal dispute rather than assassination. 20 minutes later, Bruce slipped into the surveillance van where Sophia waited, her emerald eyes bright with relief and admiration. Your cousin is remarkable, she said. My cousin is family, Bruce replied, pulling her into his arms. And so are you. As sirens wailed in the distance, police responding to reports of gunfire at Vincent Romano's compound, Bruce Castellano held the woman who'd saved his life and realized the war was over. But the most dangerous battle was just beginning, learning to trust happiness in a world built on violence. 8. 3 weeks after Vincent Romano's death, Bruce Castellano's empire experienced unprecedented peace. Rival families, seeing the surgical precision of Vincent's elimination, chose negotiation over warfare. The docks ran smoothly, legitimate businesses flourished, and for the first time in years, Bruce slept through the night without keeping a loaded weapon within reach. He woke to find Sophia's side of the bed empty, morning sunlight streaming through the penthouse windows. The smell of coffee and something delicious drifted from the kitchen. You're spoiling me, he said, padding barefoot to find her flipping pancakes with professional expertise. Someone has to make sure you eat real food instead of surviving on caffeine and adrenaline, Sophia replied, not looking up from the stove. She wore one of his dress shirts over leggings, her honey blonde hair caught in a messy bun that somehow looked perfectly elegant. Bruce studied her profile, still amazed by her presence in his life. 3 weeks of normalcy, or as normal as life could be for a Mafia boss and the woman who'd saved him. They'd fallen into domestic routines with surprising ease, morning coffee together, evening dinners overlooking the city, quiet conversations about everything except the violence that had brought them together. Danny called, Bruce said, checking his encrypted phone. The Romano family wants to meet, discuss territorial arrangements. That's good, right? Sophia set a plate before him. Perfect pancakes, fresh berries, real maple syrup. Peace talks instead of war. In my world, peace is usually just the pause between conflicts. Bruce caught her hand as she moved past him. Are you happy, Sophia? The question had been building for days. She'd adapted to his lifestyle with remarkable grace, but Bruce recognized the signs of someone processing trauma, the nightmares she thought he didn't notice, the way she checked exits in every room, the occasional distant look when she thought no one was watching. "I'm alive," she said carefully. "My mother is safe. The medical bills are handled. Those aren't small things." "That's not what I asked." Sophia sat across from him, her emerald eyes serious. "I'm learning to be happy. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense. I spent so many years just surviving. Work, bills, worry, that I forgot what it felt like to have choices." She gestured around the opulent penthouse. "This life, your life, it's incredible. But sometimes I feel like I'm wearing someone else's clothes." Bruce nodded slowly. "What would make you feel like yourself again?" "I want to work," Sophia said immediately. "Not because I have to, but because I want to. Maybe finish nursing school, help people." "That's dangerous. Your face is known now." "Not in private practice. Not with the right security." Sophia's voice grew stronger. "I can't just be your protected girlfriend forever, Bruce. I need purpose." Bruce admired her honesty even as protective instincts flared. "We'll make it work." "Really?" "Really." Bruce stood, moving to the window that overlooked his domain. "But there's something else. Something I haven't told you about the Romano situation." Sophia joined him, sensing the shift in his mood. "What?" "Vincent had a son. Anthony Romeo, 26 years old, Harvard MBA, currently running the family's legitimate businesses from Chicago." Bruce's voice was carefully neutral. "He's coming to New York. For the peace talks? For revenge." The words hung between them like a storm cloud. Sophia had begun to believe the danger was over, that Vincent's death had ended the threat to their fragile happiness. "How dangerous is he?" she asked. "Unknown. Anthony's been out of the family business for years, focused on corporate law and investment banking, but Vincent was his father. Blood for blood. That's how these things work." Bruce turned to face her. "I can handle Anthony Romeo, but I need to know you're safe first. We've been through this. Not like this." Bruce's intensity filled the space between them. "Vincent was predictable, emotional. Anthony is educated, patient, sophisticated. He'll study us, learn our patterns, strike when we're most vulnerable. When we're happiest," Sophia realized. "When we think we're safe." Sophia moved into Bruce's arms, feeling the tension in his shoulders, the weight of responsibility he carried. "What do you need from me?" "Trust me to protect you. Let me handle Anthony Romeo my way." "And what way is that?" Bruce's smile was cold, calculated, the expression she'd learned to recognize when he shifted from lover to predator. "I'm going to make him an offer he'd be stupid to refuse." "What kind of offer?" "The kind that turns enemies into allies." Bruce's hands framed her face, gray eyes intense with purpose. "But first I need to know something." "What? Are you willing to fight for this? For us? For the life we could build together?" Sophia didn't hesitate. "Yes. Even if it means more danger, more violence, more threats against people you care about. Especially then." Sophia's voice carried newfound steel. "Vincent Romano tried to kill you and threatened my mother. If his son wants to continue this war, he'll learn what happens when someone threatens what I love." Bruce kissed her then, fierce and possessive, tasting the determination in her response. When they broke apart, he saw the woman who'd warned him about poison transformed into someone harder, more dangerous. Someone who belonged in his world not as victim or protected asset, but as equal partner. "Anthony Romeo arrives tomorrow," Bruce said. "Time to show him what he's really up against." As they stood together overlooking the city Bruce controlled, both realized their greatest test was approaching. Vincent had been powerful but impulsive. Anthony would be something far more dangerous, patient, intelligent, and motivated by the most deadly emotion of all, a son's love for his murdered father. The war was far from over. It was evolving. 9. Anthony Romeo stepped off his private jet at Teterboro Airport, looking like exactly what he was. A Harvard-educated corporate lawyer worth approximately $50 million in legitimate assets. Tall, lean, expensive suit, steel-rimmed glasses that made him appear more scholar than soldier, nothing like his father's old-world brutality, which was precisely what made him dangerous. "Welcome to New York, Mr. Romeo," Detective Ray Morrison said, approaching with practiced casualness. Morrison had been on Bruce's payroll for 5 years, providing early warning about police attention and federal investigations. "Detective," Anthony replied cordially. "I assume Mr. Castellano knows I'm here." He knows. Morrison handed him a business card. He'd like to meet. Tonight, if convenient. Anthony studied the card. Address for an upscale Manhattan restaurant, 8 p.m. reservation. Neutral ground? The most neutral in the city. Italian place in Midtown, owned by families with no loyalty to either side. How civilized. Anthony's smile was polite, empty. Tell Mr. Castellano I'll be there. 3 hours later, Bruce finished adjusting his tie in the penthouse bedroom mirror, while Sophia watched from their bed, her nursing textbooks spread around her like protective armor. You don't have to do this, she said quietly. Actually, I do. Bruce checked his Glock, sliding it into the shoulder holster beneath his jacket. Anthony Romeo isn't going to disappear just because I ignore him. Take backup. I am. Danny and 4 others will be positioned around the restaurant. Bruce sat on the bed's edge, taking her hand. But this meeting is between Anthony and me. Adding more people would send the wrong message. What message are you trying to send? That I'm confident enough to meet him alone. That I respect his intelligence enough to negotiate rather than simply eliminate him. Sophia squeezed his fingers. And if he's not interested in negotiation, then he dies tonight. And we spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders for the next Romeo family member seeking revenge. The brutal honesty no longer shocked Sophia. She'd learned to appreciate Bruce's directness, his refusal to sugarcoat the realities of his world. I'll be waiting, she said. With armed security and full surveillance, Bruce added. Anthony might be civilized, but he's not stupid. La Strada occupied a discreet corner in Midtown Manhattan, the kind of restaurant where Manhattan's power brokers conducted business over perfect pasta and wine that cost more per bottle than most people earned monthly. Bruce arrived first, choosing a corner table that provided clear sightlines to all entrances. Anthony Romeo entered precisely at 8, moving with the confidence of someone accustomed to boardrooms and courtrooms. He approached Bruce's table alone, as agreed. Mr. Castellano, Anthony extended his hand. Thank you for agreeing to meet. Mr. Romeo. Bruce shook hands firmly, noting the calloused palms. This lawyer stayed in fighting shape. Please sit. They ordered wine and appetizers, maintaining perfect civility while sizing each other up. Anthony was younger than Bruce expected, probably 35 rather than 26, with intelligent brown eyes that missed nothing. You killed my father, Anthony said conversationally, tasting the Barolo with apparent appreciation. Your father tried to poison me, Bruce replied equally calmly. Self-defense. My father was an impulsive man who let emotion override judgment. Anthony set down his wine glass with precise control. I'm not my father. No, you're not. You're something potentially more dangerous. Intelligent. Patient. Educated in legitimate warfare as well as street violence. Anthony smiled, the first genuine expression Bruce had seen from him. You've researched me. Harvard Law Review, summa cum laude. 3 years at Goldman Sachs before taking over Romeo Family Investments. Increased legitimate holdings by 400%, while gradually reducing dependence on traditional criminal enterprises. Very thorough. Anthony leaned back in his chair. Now let me demonstrate my research. Bruce Anthony Castellano, 42 years old, third-generation organized crime but with legitimate business interests worth approximately $200 million. Reputation for intelligence, pragmatism, and absolute loyalty to people under his protection. Also thorough. Which brings us to Sophia Martinez. Anthony's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his voice. The woman who saved your life and started the war that killed my father. Bruce's hand moved slightly closer to his weapon. Careful. I'm not threatening her, Anthony said quickly. I'm acknowledging reality. My father declared war on you over a woman who made one honest choice. That war cost him his life and nearly destroyed both our organizations. Your point? Anthony signaled the waiter for more wine, buying time to frame his words carefully. My point is that continuing this cycle of revenge serves no one's interests. You and I are both businessmen who happen to operate in a violent industry. Perhaps it's time to treat this as a business problem requiring a business solution. Bruce studied the younger man, recognizing ambition and calculation beneath the diplomatic language. What kind of solution? Partnership. Anthony leaned forward, his voice dropping to ensure privacy. Your organization controls traditional territories and operations. My organization brings legitimate investment capabilities and corporate expertise. Together we could build something unprecedented, a truly integrated criminal legitimate enterprise. You're proposing to merge our families. I'm proposing to evolve beyond families into a modern business structure. Profit sharing, defined territories, mutual protection, coordinated expansion into new markets. Bruce considered the proposal while their entrees arrived. Anthony Romeo was offering something unprecedented, a way to transform the generational cycle of violence into sustainable prosperity. "What about your father's death?" Bruce asked finally. "My father chose his path and faced the consequences." Anthony's voice carried no emotion. "I choose a different path. And if I refuse your partnership?" Anthony's smile was cold as winter steel. "Then you spend the rest of your life wondering when I'll strike, how I'll strike, who I'll target to hurt you most effectively. Because unlike my father, I won't announce my intentions or give you opportunities to defend yourself." The threat was delivered with such calm politeness that it took Bruce a moment to process its implications. Anthony Romeo wasn't just proposing partnership, he was demonstrating why refusal would be fatal. "You're blackmailing me. I'm presenting options." Anthony finished his wine with apparent satisfaction. "Partnership or war, prosperity or mutual destruction. Your choice, Mr. Castellano." As their dinner concluded with handshakes and promises to consider the proposal, Bruce realized he was facing something far more dangerous than Vincent Romeo's emotional revenge quest. He was facing the future of organized crime, and Sophia was about to become a pawn in a game whose rules were still being written. 10. Sophia knew something was wrong the moment Bruce returned from his dinner with Anthony Romeo. He moved through the penthouse with restless energy, checking security monitors, adjusting window blinds, his grey eyes constantly scanning for threats that existed more in possibility than reality. "That badly?" she asked, closing her nursing textbook. "That complicated." Bruce poured himself 3 fingers of scotch, a sure sign of stress. "Anthony Romeo is offering partnership instead of war. That's good news, right? In my world, when someone offers you exactly what you want, it usually means they want something even more valuable in return." Sophia joined him at the window overlooking Manhattan's glittering expanse. "What does he want?" "Legitimacy, respectability, access to my political connections and established business relationships." Bruce's voice carried undertones of suspicion. "Everything his father could never achieve through violence. So give it to him. If it means peace, peace with Anthony Romeo means surrendering control of my own organization." Bruce turned to face her, his expression troubled. "He's not proposing partnership. He's proposing a corporate takeover disguised as alliance. How can you be sure?" Bruce moved to his desk, opening encrypted files on his laptop. "Because I spent the last 3 hours having my people investigate his legitimate businesses in Chicago." Sophia studied the financial records, corporation structures, and personnel files that filled the screen. Even with her limited business knowledge, the pattern was clear. He's been acquiring companies, she realized, systematically. Transportation, construction, waste management, food service, every industry my organization uses for money laundering and operational support. Bruce's finger traced connections between seemingly unrelated corporations. "Anthony Romeo has been preparing for this partnership for years, or preparing to eliminate you." "Same thing." Ultimately, Bruce closed the laptop, his decision crystallizing. "If I accept his partnership, I become a junior partner in my own empire. If I refuse, he has enough economic leverage to strangle my operations slowly." Sophia felt cold dread settling in her stomach. "What are you going to do?" "What I always do. Adapt and survive." Bruce's phone buzzed. Marco's ringtone. "We have a problem." His cousin's voice was tense. 3 of our major suppliers just cancelled contracts. Simultaneously. No explanation. "Anthony's opening moves," Bruce said grimly. "How bad?" 80% of our construction materials, 60% of our restaurant supplies, all of our waste management services. He's choking off our supply chains. Expected timeline? 2 weeks before we start losing legitimate income, maybe less. After ending the call, Bruce found Sophia staring out at the city with new understanding. "He's not giving you time to consider the partnership. He's demonstrating why I need to accept it." Bruce's admiration for Anthony's strategy was grudging, but genuine. Elegant, sophisticated, completely legal, and completely ruthless. The best kind of enemy. Bruce moved behind her, his hands settling on her shoulders. Anthony Romeo learned from his father's mistakes. No emotional decisions, No public violence, no witnesses or evidence, just slow economic strangulation until you surrender. Unless I find leverage of my own. Sophia turned in his arms, recognizing the calculating expression that meant Bruce was shifting into predator mode. What kind of leverage? The kind that makes partnership genuinely mutual instead of disguised conquest. Bruce's smile was sharp as a blade. Anthony Romeo has one weakness his father never had, which is, he actually cares about someone other than himself. Bruce returned to his laptop, pulling up surveillance photos from Anthony's Chicago operations. Among the corporate executives and business partners, one face stood out, a stunning brunette in her early 30s, photographed entering and leaving Anthony's penthouse apartment. Victoria Chen, Bruce said, corporate lawyer, Harvard Law School classmate, Anthony's fiancée for the past 2 years. Sophia studied the photographs, noting the woman's obvious intelligence and sophistication. You're going to threaten her. I'm going to offer her protection. Bruce's correction was important, because Anthony Romeo might be more civilized than his father, but he's still a Romeo, and Romeo women have historically had dangerous lives. Meaning Victoria Chen probably doesn't know the full scope of Anthony's business interests, and people in love tend to be protective when they discover their partners have been lying to them. Sophia began to understand Bruce's strategy. You're going to turn her against him. I'm going to give her information and let her make her own choices. Bruce's voice carried conviction, just like someone once gave me information that saved my life. The parallel wasn't lost on Sophia. She'd warned Bruce about Vincent's poison because it was the right thing to do, without knowing the consequences that choice would unleash. When do we approach her? Sophia asked. We? You'll need a woman present when you contact her, someone she can relate to, someone who understands what it's like to fall in love with a dangerous man. Bruce studied Sophia's determined expression, recognizing the steel beneath her gentle exterior. This isn't a game, Sophia. If Anthony discovers we're targeting Victoria, he'll do exactly what you'd do if someone threatened me. Sophia's voice was steady, which is why we have to be very, very careful. And very, very smart. Lucky for us, Sophia said, moving into his arms. We're both. As they held each other overlooking the city that had become their battlefield, both understood they were about to cross another line. The war with Vincent Romeo had been about survival. The conflict with Anthony would be about something far more complex, the future of everything they'd built together. But this time they weren't just reacting to threats. They were taking control of their destiny, writing the rules of engagement on their own terms. Anthony Romeo had made one crucial mistake. He'd assumed Bruce Castellano would play defense. He was about to learn how wrong that assumption was. 11. Victoria Chen lived in a Lincoln Park penthouse that screamed successful corporate lawyer. Modern furniture, abstract art, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. She opened her door to find Sophia Martinez standing in the hallway, looking nervous but determined. Miss Chen, my name is Sophia Martinez. I need to talk to you about Anthony Romeo. Victoria's expression shifted from polite confusion to guarded wariness. I'm sorry, who are you? Someone who understands what it's like to fall in love with a dangerous man without knowing how dangerous he really is. For a long moment, Victoria studied Sophia's face, noting the sincerity in her emerald eyes, the tension in her posture that suggested recent trauma. Come in. Victoria's apartment was exactly what Sophia expected, tasteful, expensive, organized with military precision, but she also noticed details that spoke of a woman in love. Anthony's Harvard Law Review displayed prominently, engagement photos on the mantelpiece, men's clothing in the bedroom visible through an open door. Coffee, Victoria offered, her lawyer's training helping her maintain composure despite obvious curiosity. Please. Sophia settled onto the modern sofa, studying Victoria Chen carefully. Beautiful, intelligent, successful. Everything a man like Anthony would want in a wife. Everything that made her valuable as leverage. So, Victoria said, returning with perfect coffee in expensive cups, tell me about these dangerous men we've apparently fallen in love with. Sophia pulled out her phone, showing Victoria a photograph of herself and Bruce at a charity gala the previous month. My dangerous man is Bruce Castellano. Victoria's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. The Bruce Castellano? New York organized crime? The same. And your Anthony Romeo is his newest business partner. That's impossible. Victoria set down her cup with careful control. Anthony runs legitimate businesses, corporate law, investment banking, completely legal operations, built on foundations of money laundering, extortion and murder. Sophia's voice was gentle but implacable. Anthony Romeo is Vincent Romeo's son, and Vincent Romeo was a mafia boss who tried to kill Bruce 3 months ago. Victoria stood abruptly, moving to the window as if distance could protect her from unwelcome truths. Anthony told me his father died in a car accident. Anthony's father died from 3 bullets to the chest in his Bay Ridge compound. Sophia joined her at the window, recognizing the shock and denial in Victoria's posture. "I'm sorry, I know this isn't easy to hear. Why are you telling me this?" "Because Anthony is using you." Sophia's honesty was brutal but necessary. "Your legal expertise, your corporate connections, your reputation. He needs legitimacy to take over Bruce's organization, and you're providing it without knowing what you're really helping him accomplish." Victoria's lawyer training kicked in, demanding evidence over emotion. "Prove it." Sophia handed her a tablet loaded with financial records, surveillance photographs, and intercepted communications that Bruce's organization had compiled over the past week. The evidence was overwhelming. Anthony Romeo's legitimate businesses were fronts for sophisticated criminal enterprises, his corporate acquisitions were preparation for territorial expansion, and his engagement to Victoria Chen was as calculated as everything else in his professional life. "The wedding is next month," Victoria whispered, scrolling through documents that destroyed her understanding of the man she loved. "Congratulations," Sophia said quietly. "You'll be marrying into one of Chicago's most powerful crime families." Victoria sank into a chair, her world reorganizing around new and terrible realities. "What do you want from me?" "Information." "Anthony's plans, his timeline, his weaknesses." Sophia sat across from her, leaning forward with urgent sincerity. "Bruce doesn't want war with Anthony, but Anthony isn't giving him choice. Your fiancé is systematically destroying Bruce's legitimate businesses, forcing him into partnership or poverty. And you want me to betray the man I love. I want you to understand who you're really in love with." Sophia's voice carried painful experience. "I fell in love with Bruce knowing exactly what he was, a killer, a criminal, someone whose world operates on violence and fear. But he never lied to me about his nature." Victoria studied the evidence again, noting details that corroborated Anthony's deception. "How long have you known about Bruce?" "From the beginning. He told me the truth because he respected me enough to let me make informed choices." Sophia met Victoria's gaze directly. "Anthony has been lying to you for 2 years. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Victoria Chen was quiet for long minutes, processing information that shattered her planned future. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the steel of a woman who'd built her career on decisive action. "What kind of information does Bruce need?" "Anthony's meeting schedule, his communication patterns, his security arrangements." Sophia felt relief and guilt in equal measure. "Anything that gives Bruce leverage in their negotiations. And in return, protection. When this war ends, however it ends, Bruce will make sure Anthony can't retaliate against you for helping us." Victoria laughed bitterly. "Assuming Bruce wins." "Bruce always wins," Sophia said with absolute conviction. "That's why Anthony is trying to destroy him slowly, instead of facing him directly." "What happens to Anthony?" The question hung between them like a loaded gun. Sophia understood Victoria's conflict, loving someone who'd betrayed you, wanting justice while fearing its consequences. "That depends on Anthony," Sophia replied honestly. "If he accepts genuine partnership terms, everyone survives. If he continues trying to eliminate Bruce, he dies. He dies." Victoria stood, moving to her laptop with decisive purpose. "Anthony has a meeting tomorrow night, private dinner with his Chicago lieutenants, planning the final phase of his New York expansion." "Where?" "Private dining room at the Palmer House, 9 p.m. Victoria's fingers flew over the keyboard, downloading files onto an encrypted drive. "Security will be minimal. Anthony thinks he's untouchable in Chicago." As Sophia accepted the drive containing Anthony Romeo's most sensitive strategic information, both women understood they'd crossed a point of no return. Victoria had chosen truth over comfortable lies, justice over willful blindness. "Will I see him again?" Victoria asked quietly. "After this ends?" Sophia considered lying, offering false comfort about Anthony's chances for survival. Instead, she chose the honesty that Victoria deserved. "Probably not," she said gently. "But you'll see yourself clearly for the first time in 2 years." Sometimes that's worth everything. As Sophia left Victoria Chen's apartment, with enough intelligence to end Anthony Romeo's threat permanently, she reflected on the strange bonds formed between women who loved dangerous men. They protected each other, even when protection meant destroying the men they couldn't save. Miss 12. The Palmer House private dining room fell silent as Anthony Romeo realized he was no longer among friends. 6 men sat around the mahogany table, his most trusted lieutenants, the foundation of his Chicago operations, the architects of his planned New York expansion. All of them now wore the expressions of people who'd discovered uncomfortable truths. "Gentlemen," Anthony said carefully, noting the positions of hands near weapons, the subtle shift in body language that preceded violence. "Is there something we need to discuss?" "Your fiancée is very helpful," said Thomas Chen, Victoria's older brother and Anthony's chief financial officer. "Especially when she learns her future husband has been lying to her for 2 years. Anthony's blood chilled. Victoria's betrayal hit harder than any physical blow, not because he loved her, but because he'd never considered her a threat worth monitoring. "Where is she?" "Safe," Thomas replied. "Somewhere you'll never find her. Bruce Castellano's people are very thorough." "This is about Castellano?" "This is about you lying to everyone in this room about your real intentions." Michael Torres, Anthony's head of security, placed a thick folder on the table. "Did you really think we wouldn't investigate when you started making moves against established New York families?" Anthony opened the folder to find comprehensive intelligence on his secret war against Bruce Castellano. Financial records, communication intercepts, surveillance photographs documenting every step of his careful campaign. "You've been using our legitimate businesses to fund a personal vendetta," continued David Park, his technology specialist. "Risking everything we've built for revenge against the man who killed your father." "My father was an impulsive idiot who declared war on someone he couldn't defeat," Thomas interrupted coldly. "And you're following his example." Anthony looked around the table, recognizing the careful positioning that meant his own organization had voted him out. "You're making a mistake. The mistake was trusting you to lead us into legitimate prosperity instead of repeating old patterns of violence and stupidity." Michael's hand rested openly on his weapon now. "Bruce Castellano made us an offer." "What kind of offer?" "Partnership, real partnership, not the corporate takeover you've been planning." David slid another folder across the table. "Equal territories, shared resources, mutual protection, and most importantly, no more wars of revenge." Anthony studied the partnership terms Bruce had negotiated with his own lieutenants behind his back. The agreements were generous, fair, and completely eliminated Anthony's position as leader of his organization. "You're selling me out." "We're choosing survival over your ego," Thomas corrected. "Bruce Castellano has something you never understood, the loyalty of people who know exactly who he is and what he stands for." "And what does he stand for?" "Protection." Michael's voice carried absolute conviction. "When Bruce Castellano gives his word, it means something. When he claims responsibility for someone's safety, they're safe. Can you say the same?" Anthony considered his options: fight and die here in Chicago, run and spend his life hiding from former allies, or surrender with whatever dignity remained. "What happens to me?" "That depends," said a new voice from the dining room entrance. Bruce Castellano entered alone, moving with the confidence of someone completely comfortable in enemy territory. He wore an expensive suit, no visible weapons, his grey eyes calm and calculating. "Depends on what?" Anthony asked. "Whether you're smart enough to learn from your father's mistakes." Bruce took the empty chair at the table's head, ignoring the weapons trained on him. "Your organization has chosen partnership over war. The question is whether you can accept that choice. And if I can't, then you follow your father into an early grave. And everyone in this room continues building prosperity without you." Bruce's honesty was brutal. "Your choice, Anthony." Anthony Romeo looked around the table at men he'd trusted, led, and ultimately lost through his own deception and ambition. They'd chosen Bruce Castellano's proven leadership over his untested promises, preferring honest partnership to disguised conquest. "What kind of partnership are you offering me personally?" "Senior advisor position in the legitimate businesses, 20% ownership in combined operations, full protection for you and anyone you care about." Bruce's terms were surprisingly generous. Everything except leadership. Why? Because leadership is earned through trust, and trust is built through honesty. Bruce leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed, despite being surrounded by armed men. You lied to everyone, your organization, your fiancé, yourself. Leaders tell hard truths, even when those truths are inconvenient. Anthony felt the weight of his father's legacy pressing down on him. Generations of violence, betrayal, and ultimately futile struggles for power that consumed everything they touched. Victoria? Safe, free to make her own choices about her future. Bruce's voice softened slightly. She's a good woman who deserved better than deception. Will I ever see her again? That's her decision to make. Anthony Romeo stood slowly, understanding that his war against Bruce Castellano was over before it had truly begun. He'd underestimated not just his enemy's capabilities, but his own people's desire for something better than endless cycles of revenge. I accept your terms, he said quietly. Welcome to the future of organized crime, Bruce replied, extending his hand. Profit sharing, mutual protection, and no more wars over dead fathers. As they shook hands in the Palmer House private dining room, both men understood they were writing new rules for an ancient game. Anthony Romeo would never lead a criminal organization, but he would help build something unprecedented, a truly integrated network of legitimate and illegitimate enterprises based on partnership rather than conquest. 3 hours later, Bruce returned to his Manhattan penthouse to find Sophia waiting with champagne and the kind of smile that made all the risk worthwhile. It's over, she asked. It's over. Bruce pulled her into his arms, tasting victory and relief in equal measure. Anthony Romeo is alive, his organization is intact, and everyone profits from peace instead of dying for pride. And Victoria? Free to rebuild her life however she chooses. Bruce held Sophia tighter, grateful for the woman whose courage had started this entire chain of events. Just like someone else I know. As they stood together overlooking the city that had tested them both, Sophia realized she'd found something she'd never expected in Bruce Castellano's dangerous world. Not just safety or prosperity, but partnership with someone who valued her choices, even when those choices complicated his own life. What happens now? She asked. Now we live, Bruce replied simply. We build something worth protecting, and we protect each other while we build it. Outside their windows, Manhattan pulsed with life and possibility, a city where powerful men made deals and kept promises, where love could flourish even in worlds built on violence, and where a waitress's simple act of conscience had rewritten the rules of war itself. The future stretched before them, uncertain, dangerous, but theirs to shape together, and that was enough.